Hi friends, this is Kathy with Sycamore and Cotton. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel. This week's video is short and sweet, so let's get started. This project is going to be one that brings a little warmth and spring-like feel to a really cold last few days. Well, actually a couple of weeks that we've had that have been so cold with snow and ice and frigid temperatures that kept me from being able to come down to my workshop and do anything. And this week, though, we've seen 2 days in a row of temperatures in the 70s, low 70s, 70, 71. And while I typically enjoy winter and enjoy snow, I kind of got a burst of spring fever with those warmer days and some sunshine. So I decided I was going to try a project that I've wanted to do for a while and just had not gotten around to it. And that is making faux forced bulbs. So if you know about any gardening, you know that you can force your bulbs to bloom early, and even without them being planted, you can just have them on some rocks and some water in a bowl, and the roots will grow down into the rocks and into the water, and it'll start sprouting, and you'll have your beautiful flowers forced blooming. And so that's what I'm trying to emulate here are some forced blooms of these beautiful tulips, and I'm making a faux project so that I can keep these around all spring and not just during the blooming season of tulips or any other spring bulb flower. So I started this with just taking about a fourth of a full page newspaper. So when you open your newspaper up and you've got the left and the right sides, well, I tore that in half, and then I tore that piece in half, so that I was using about a fourth of a full page. And I rolled it up into a tight little ball, and then, trying to shape it as a ball. But remember, bulbs aren't perfectly shaped. And then I do put a little tape around it just to help hold it together. And then I use my X-Acto knife to make a cut in both ends of it, so that I can then put my stem, the wire of my tulip stem, down through that ball. Now, you may have seen people making these with styrofoam balls before, and they work perfectly well, but I didn't have that size of styrofoam ball. I definitely wanted to work on these projects yesterday, and I also wanted to make it even cheaper. Styrofoam is not cheap, but leftover newspapers, there's no expense in that. So I made these with everything that I already had on hand. Here I'm unrolling a piece of craft paper that was actually in something that we've ordered. I save all of those because I have an Etsy shop and I'll reuse packaging like that. But I grabbed a sheet of that. It doesn't have to be a circle, and you want it to be wrinkled, so if it's not wrinkled enough, you can roll it up and wrinkle it really well and then unroll it. I put the stem through it, and here you see me putting Mod Podge around the ball part. And I'm doing that so that my craft paper will stick to it eventually once it's dried. And then I just take my hand and then just shape that craft paper around the paper ball that I made. And I kind of do a twist on it, twisting it so that the craft paper is twisted and it helps to hold it together at the top. Now this is kind of long right now, and so I'm tearing off the paper so that it looks more natural. And bulbs don't typically grow that large. So I'm tearing off that excess paper, and I think I even after I've got it all put together, I go back and tear it some more because it's still really just too much there. Bulbs, what I've seen, don't typically have that much around the top. But I put the stem back down in it, press really hard all the way around. And here I'm putting more Mod Podge, and you can use just white Elmer's glue. You don't have to have Mod Podge or any kind of special product, just glue, regular glue would do. You do want it to dry opaque though, so make sure that whatever you use dries clear. And I'm just brushing it on. I'm going to let that dry. Now, without touching the bottom, or trying to not touch the bottom where I put the Mod Podge, because it wouldn't hurt it, but it would get it all over my hands. Again, I'm just twisting, twisting, twisting. And I'm drying it now just to kind of force dry that Mod Podge. And I just tore off a piece of moss, reindeer moss I think is what it's called. And just put it through the wire on the tulip so that it attaches to the bottom of the bulb. And then that is supposed to be the roots that grow out of the bulb when it's actually rooting. And then I just stick it down in some styrofoam, and I have 2 there you can see, and then I'm working on the 3rd one. And this one, I'm trimming back the top on the bulb as well. You want to make sure that you tear off any excess at the top of the bulb and not cut it with scissors, because you want that organic edge around it, not, you know, a straight line that scissors would make. And I'm just doing the same thing again, just twisting it up. And next what I'm going to do, and unfortunately my camera stopped recording because my memory was full on my phone, and it stopped before I noticed it, and I went through the whole process of putting the pieces in the cup that will make this give this a finished look. And so what I did, you see there's styrofoam in the cup. I did glue it down because these flowers are kind of top heavy, and I felt that they would be falling out of the cup. And here, so what I just pointed to there and what I'm doing here is the paper had torn just a little, the craft paper had, and it was showing that orange tape that I had used. So I'm just taking off a tiny piece and Mod Podging a little tiny piece of the scrap paper that I just tore off. So if you have anything like that happen, obviously that's on the bottom and it would probably never show, but I just wanted to make sure that it was repaired and, you know, not something that might eventually tear larger or go up the side or something. But anyway, back to the finishing on this. So I glued in the styrofoam, as you see there, and then I got out some green, not the reindeer moss, but actual dried moss that you can buy in the craft stores, and it has its beautiful fresh green color. And I glued that on top of the styrofoam to cover it and give it a natural look. A few things that I want to make sure that I mention is, number one, when you are cutting off the stem of your flower, whatever kind of flower that you're using, mine actually has a green tubing around the wire, and it is very similar to what the leaf is made out of. So what I did is I just cut around that outer portion and then was able to disconnect that from the rest and just pull it off and leave the wire. You do want to have the wire there so that you can push it down into the styrofoam. The other thing is, when you are cutting back the length of your flowers, you want to kind of have them not staggered, you know, with a big difference in their height, but don't have them all the exact same, you know, within a half an inch or a quarter of an inch, or close but not the exact same height. To me, that just looks more realistic. While the Mod Podge is drying, I leave them standing in the styrofoam so that they'll be unbothered and can dry easily. And this part is where I had removed them and actually started applying the Spanish moss. And as you can see, it will cut off here in just a minute. And one last thing that I did to the bulbs after the Mod Podge had pretty much dried was apply a brown wax, an antiquing wax. I used Waverly antiquing wax. You could also use a brown paint and just do a dry brush on it, but you want to just apply a little bit of that to give your bulbs a more realistic look. So here it is now, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, especially considering that I had not made these before, so it's my first try. And this is a really affordable project that if you're a crafter, you probably have most of the things on hand. I thrifted that little cup for about 99 cents. You could use any kind of vessel that you want to use. This was a fun, fast, and inexpensive project. It was easy to do. I had all of the items on hand. So this is my my touch of spring in the midst of winter, and I hope that you all enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't liked or subscribed to my channel, it's free to do, and if you could do that, that would mean so much to me. I appreciate all of you, and here are links to my other social media if you'd like to follow me on those platforms as well. Thanks again, and see you next time.